Today we are looking at the NFC South. We've already taken a look at the AFC North and the NFC North. Next, going into the NFC South. This is going to be a very competitive division. Seeing how all of these positions stack up for all four teams. Let's dive into it. At the quarterback position first, this is a very tough one. Lots of uncertainty at the quarterback position. I am going to be bold and put Bryce Young and the Panthers at number one. I have a lot of faith that Bryce Young is going to be a very good quarterback in the NFL. I know he has the size concerns. I know he hasn't played a snap in the NFL, so it's very bold to put him at number one in the division. I would totally understand it if you can't do that because he just hasn't shown what he can do. But I thought he was a very good prospect, has a very good processor. I think the mental game is going to be very advanced for a rookie coming in. So I definitely like what he can do, and I do think that the Panthers ultimately will have the best quarterback in this division by years. And at number two, I think you have to go with the Saints with Derek Carr. I've always been a fan of Derek Carr, but I do think that there is going to be a point where perhaps you're never going to be a true threat to win the Super Bowl, to get to the NFC Championship with Derek Carr as your quarterback. I think that, he will be an upgrade from what they had last year in Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton. And I do think you can make the case that he should be quarterback one in this division. I just have a lot of faith in Bryce Young. At number three, going to go with the Falcons and Desmond Ridder. I do think that there is a lot of uncertainty with what Ridder can potentially be. I do think he is a pretty good runner. He's a good athlete. He's got a good arm. He did play well at the very end of the season. I don't think that he's going to be asked to do a whole lot in this offense. I think they're going to be very run heavy. I think that he has some decent weapons and a good offensive line. So I do think that he is going to probably have all of the tools to be a successful quarterback this year. It's just if he can put them together. We don't have a ton of information on Desmond Ridder and if he's going to be a good player, but I do have faith that he is potentially going to be a little bit better than what the Buccaneers have at quarterback. Either Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. I was very low on Kyle Trask coming out, had a day 3 grade on him, never thought he should have been a second round pick. And I just don't think that he really has what it takes to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I just don't think he has the arm, the processing, really much of the required tools to be kind of a franchise level guy. Baker Mayfield has bounced around a lot over the years. I don't think he was necessarily the problem in Cleveland. He wasn't good. He was a below average quarterback. I don't think he is terrible, but the quarterback camp battles have not looked good, and I'm just not super confident that they're going to get good quarterback play this year. Moving to running back, I think that the Falcons absolutely have to get this spot. I think Bijan Robinson is an amazing talent at the running back position. I think he is borderline a generational prospect. I was extremely high on him coming out, and so him alone is going to be a very good player. Once again, I understand the argument that he hasn't played a snap in the NFL, but they've got Tyler Algier behind him. He was a 1,000-yard rusher. Cordarrelle Patterson is always a very interesting chess piece that you can move around, so I think they absolutely have to be number one. Moving on to the Saints, they are going to be number two. A lot of this kind of stems from questions about Alvin Kamara. Is he going to play? Is he going to be suspended? Is he going to be in jail? Nobody really knows at this point. Ultimately, I do think they have some good pieces behind him. Jamal Williams was one of the best running backs when it came to touchdowns last year. You also drafted Keandre Miller out of TCU. I think that he can be a decent playmaker for them as well. So they've got some pieces. I think Kamara is probably the best running back in this division. Right now, I think Bijan can absolutely take that over, but it's just kind of big questions about if he is going to be able to play or if he is not. Moving on to the Panthers at number three, Miles Sanders, I think is a product of some of the success in Philadelphia. I do think that he has not been the most consistent player, but I do think overall he is a solid running back for them. Yeah, move on obviously from Christian McCaffrey the year before. Jonathan Foreman moves on as well. So I do think it's going to be kind of a lot of new faces in that room, but overall I do like it slightly better than what the Buccaneers have. Rachaad White was a decent player as a rookie. I do think that he showed some nice moments, especially in the receiving game, but behind him there's just not much at all. You've got Keyshawn Vaughn and a couple other guys that really aren't super exciting. I just don't think they have a lot proven in that running back room, and don't really think you can make the case to put them any higher than number 4. At wide receiver, however, I think the Buccaneers are clearly number 1. You still have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. You've got Russell Gage still as well. This is a very, very good wide receiver room. It goes 3 deep. I think Trey Palmer is an interesting piece as well. But we'll see if Mike Evans can continue his streak of 1,000-yard seasons. I think Godwin is going to be a good player, kind of moving in a bit more of a zones kind of Shanahan-style system for the Buccaneers. I think he's going to be a productive player. So the Buccaneers are going to be number 1 there. Then we've got the Saints up next. Again, a lot of this stems from Can Michael Thomas be healthy? I'm not betting on it at this point because he just has consistently shown that he's probably not going to be, but you've got Chris Olave. You've got some other guys that I like as well. Rashid Shaheed had a nice year kind of as just a playmaker. I think A.T. Perry was a nice late round pickup. Bryan Edwards, I think, has always kind of been a bit of an underrated piece as well. So once again, the Saints coming in second in this position group ranking. At number 3, we've got the Atlanta Falcons. I do think they have some good playmakers. Drake London kind of leads the group there. Mac Hollins, Scotty Miller. I'm not sure they're really a group that scares a lot of cornerbacks, but I think Drake London can be a very nice player. He's kind of got that basketball background. He can go be a contested catch player and a really nice weapon for him. And so I do think the Falcons finish number 3 here, which leaves the Panthers at number 4. I do think they've done a decent job trying to get what they can. After losing DJ Moore, you've got Terrace Marshall still there, hasn't broken out. Laviska Shenault, same thing. You also bring in Adam Thielen, DJ Chark. A lot of these guys have dealt with injuries. They haven't lived up to their potential. But, I do think that they are trying their best to surround Bryce Young with the pieces that they could have acquired. You did get Jonathan Mingo in the second round. I think he could turn into a nice piece. He's got a lot of kind of the traits that you look for to be a really, really good wide receiver. So I do think that they have every opportunity to move up this list, but right now they are going to sit at number 4. Moving to the tight end position, it is going to be the Atlanta Falcons, and I think that that is very clear. Kyle Pitts is a really nice player. I think Jonnu Smith was a nice, sneaky, underrated pickup for them as well in that tight end room. Pitts, I think it's overhated at this point. I understand that, he was the 4th overall pick. He was picked before Jamar Chase and some of the other great players in that draft, but he had 1,000 yards as a rookie. He was banged up last year, had a lot of inconsistent quarterback play with Mariota at the helm. So I think that he is a little bit overhated at this point. He is a very, very good player, incredibly talented. Next up at tight end, I am going to go with the Saints. You've got Jawan Johnson. He was pretty productive last year. I thought he showed some really nice things. Taysom Hill is kind of a tight end in this case. I'm not sure that he is really a tight end, but he is going to count as that is his depth chart position. You've got Ed Foster Moreau as well. He, was diagnosed with cancer and has gotten signed since then, and really exciting to kind of see what he can do. He was pretty productive for the Raiders as well last year. So another position that the Saints finished second in on offense. Next up, we have the Panthers. You bring in Hayden Hurst, who had a nice productive year with the Bengals last year. I think Joe Burrow certainly helped that, but overall showed some really nice things. You have Ian Thomas, who is already kind of established within the Panther system. Tommy Tremble, kind of a mid-round pick a few years ago that I think had a lot of athletic ability. So they've got some upside at this position. I do think that, Hayden Hurst maybe benefited a bit from playing around a lot of amazing weapons. I'll be curious to see if he can continue to kind of stay as productive as he was last year. But they are going to finish 3rd in the division, which leaves the Buccaneers at 4th. Cade Otton, and just a lot of unproven guys on this Buccaneers tight end room. I do think that O'Keefe, Payne Durham, a lot of these guys are just very unproven. You just haven't seen a lot for him. Tight ends do tend to take a little bit of time to develop once they reach the NFL. I think Otton has some nice traits, but I'm just not sure that you can really put him any higher at this point. They just don't have much at all that has been proven at the NFL level. The offensive line up next is an interesting one. I'm going to go with the Falcons number 1. Really, really like the Falcons offensive line. You bring in Matthew Bergeron. He's going to play guard for you on that left side. You have Jake Matthews and Caleb McGarry bringing both the tackles back. I think they are very solid. You have Chris Lindstrom, who is one of the best guards in the league, especially at run blocking. Drew Dahlman played fairly well as well. Matt Hennessy's a decent backup. This is a very talented group, and I do think that they are honestly a very underrated, potentially top 10 offensive line in the league. I wouldn't say that that is a stretch at all. Really like what the Falcons have on that offensive line, and they are going to be number 1 in the NFC South. At number 2, I really like what the Panthers have kind of done to rebuild their offensive line. It all started with Ike Ekwonu, who they drafted in the first round last year. You have Bradley Bozeman, Austin Corbett. On the interior, both of those guys are, I'd say, fine. Taylor Moton, one of the better right tackles in the league when he is consistently healthy. Brady Christensen is kind of the liability. There is still a chance that Chandler Zavala, who they drafted, could potentially step into that role. I do think they need to figure out the left guard spot, but overall, I don't think that this is a bad offensive line by any means. I think Icky showed some really nice things towards the end of last year, and they have a lot of ability to kind of grow and get better with Bryce Young at the helm as well, who is very, very good off-platform. Then I have the Buccaneers up next. There are a lot of question marks on the Buccaneers offensive line. I think that, you could interchange them with the Saints here. I do think that Ryan Jensen and Tristan Wirfs kind of do push them above what the Saints do have. Wirfs might be moving to that left side. Sounds like that's likely the plan. I think he's one of the better young tackles in the league. He's definitely up there. With Jensen, he is on the wrong side of 30, coming off a major injury. We'll see if he is able to continue his high level of play. You also have Matt Filer, who is a decent guard. You bring in Luke Gadicki last year in the draft. He did not play well as a rookie. He was terrible, but maybe he can figure some things out. Cody Mock, an interesting prospect out of North Dakota State. We'll see how he develops. I do have my concerns about him on the interior, but I do think a lot of these guys do fit kind of the more outside zone system that they are moving towards. So be interested to see how that all works, which leaves the Saints at number 4. They could absolutely be better than this, but I do think that they have their bookend tackles at the very least. You have Trevor Penning, who I wasn't huge on. I do think that they overdrafted him when they did, but he's got a lot of natural talent coming off an injury in his rookie year. Hopefully he really kind of takes a step up in year 2. Ryan Ramczyk had a down year, but still a very, very good player. The interior is not great. Eric McCoy has been all right. Cesar Ruiz has been terrible, as has Andres Pete. I don't think that either of their guards have been good at all. McCoy has taken kind of a step back almost every year since his rookie year. So I think the interior is just kind of a bit of a mess. Penning is a big question mark. So that is why the Saints are number 4 at the offensive line spot. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, we have the Buccaneers at that edge 1 spot. Do you think that this is debatable? Certainly it depends on if Shaq Barrett is able to come back from his injury, if Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is really able to kind of take that next step that they have been hoping he can take for a long time. You add Yaya Diaby from Louisville in the draft this year. I think they have some really solid pieces. It's just about, can Barrett get healthy and really kind of have another productive season like he was pre-injury. At number 2, I have the Panthers. Brian Burns really helps this out. I think that Gross Matos really hasn't been an amazing player for him. They do have some guys that you hope can turn into something, but overall, it is pretty much just held up solely by Brian Burns and his amazing play. Frankie Louvu sometimes plays kind of a hybrid edge spot at times. I think that the Panthers are a team that could absolutely use another edge rusher, but Burns is really, really good. He's a top 15 edge rusher in the NFL, might be top 10, so he kind of pushes them up high on this list. And then for the Saints next up, I think that they have Cam Jordan. If he is getting older, I don't think he's necessarily the same amazing player that he was 5 years ago, but still a very, very solid player all around. And then there's just kind of a lot of uncertainty behind him. Isaiah Foskey was their 2nd-round pick. I thought that was a bit early for him. You have Carl Granderson. They've done a good job with their defensive ends, but you lose Marcus Davenport. And I do think that Cam Jordan has taken a step back. It's just not the same caliber of edge rushers that they are used to. But I think overall, they do still have some pieces there. That leaves the Falcons at number 4. With the Falcons, they just have some uncertainty at this spot. Arnold Ebiketie, who they drafted last year, I think it could be a piece for him down the road. But right now, you have Lorenzo Carter. You signed Bud Dupree, who I think was an underrated signing. You got Zach Harrison in the draft. You have some pieces. D'Angelo Malone was an interesting pick for him as well. We just need to see it on the field a little bit more. I think that all of the teams in front of them do have a proven edge rusher. They don't necessarily have that. I like some of the pieces. I think Ebiketie can become a really solid piece, and some of those other guys down the road as well. But right now they are going to rank in that 4th spot. In the interior defensive line, it is going to be the Buccaneers first as well. Vita Vea, probably the best nose tackle in the league, certainly, top 3. You also have Kalijah Cansey, who I was a huge fan of at that 3 tech spot. Logan Hall is probably going to be considered an interior player as well. I was high on him when he came out. He really hasn't lived up to those expectations thus far, but just going into his 2nd season has plenty of time to turn that around. I think that they are clearly the number 1 group. Number 2, it's going to be the Atlanta Falcons. Just talked about how they didn't have much on the outside of that defensive line, but the interior has rounded out really, really nicely. You signed Calais Campbell, not in his prime, not the same player that he once was, but still very, very solid. You have Grady Jarrett, who is, again, really, really solid. Maybe a little bit past his prime, but still a very good player. And then David Onyemata, who you signed from your rival, the Saints. I think that he still has some juice left as well. He's a good player, and I think that they have some nice pieces on that defensive line on the interior. At number 3, going to go with the Panthers. I think that, you've got Derek Brown. Maybe he hasn't lived up to being a top 10 pick, but Shy Tuttle is a solid player as well. You sign him from New Orleans. And you got some other pieces that maybe you can turn into something down the road. I think they are going to be in that number 3 spot. And then for the Saints, they will finish off in that number 4 spot. You sign Caitlin Saunders from Kansas City, Nathan Shepard from the Jets. You draft Brian Brzee. Just not guys that have really been high-level starters or have proven to be more than that. I just think that right now they are clearly that 4th spot, and they need some help on that interior, to say the least. The linebacker position is actually really talented for a lot of these teams. Going to put the Buccaneers at number 1. Levante David is still one of the best linebackers in the NFL. Devin White, has requested a trade. Maybe isn't super happy with how he is viewed within the team internally as far as contract extensions. He's a very good run and chase athletic linebacker. I don't think he's a top 10 linebacker in the NFL at all, but I do think that he plays his role really, really well. Then for the Saints, you've got Demario Davis. I really like Pete Werner. He's developed into a really, really solid player for them. So I like those 2 guys a lot for the Saints. And then moving forward, you have the Panthers. Shaq Thompson, Uvu, both really, really good players. They would be probably a first linebacker group on a lot of divisions, but they're number 3 because this division has some real talent at that linebacker spot. And then at 4th, it is the Falcons. Very clearly, they do not have much at that linebacker spot. Troy Anderson, maybe Keaton Ellis, Mykal Walker. Just nothing really proven, nothing super exciting at that Falcons linebacker room. So they're clearly number 4th to me there. The cornerback room and the safety room were both very, very difficult for me to rank. I'm going to go with the Saints number 1 at corner. Marshawn Lattimore, I think, is the best corner in this division. He's done it for a long time. You know what you're getting with him. When he's healthy, he is a great corner. Probably top 5, definitely top 10 in the league. Bradley Roby, Paulson Adebo both played really well last year. Alontae Taylor has also played really good when he has gotten chances. So I think the depth of this room really helps it out as well. But they are going to be in that number 1 spot. At the number 2 spot, I am going to go with the Panthers. I think that J.C. Horn is criminally underrated. He should have been a Pro Bowler last year. And, a lot of people make fun of the Panthers for not taking Justin Fields. And I do think that, they probably should have taken a quarterback. But you end up getting Bryce Young now. And you get J.C. Horn, who is a lockdown number 1 corner. You have Adoree Jackson as well. If you consider Jeremy Chin, who will play a lot of nickel cornerback, a corner, I think that he certainly helps this group out as well. C.J. Henderson, some of those other guys I don't believe in a ton, but the Panthers have a very, very good cornerback room at this point, in my opinion. Next, going to go with the Falcons. A.J. Terrell was one of the best corners in the NFL 2 years ago, probably the best. Had a bit more of a down season last year, and I do think that he will bounce back. I do think that he has all of the talent, too. You do have Jeff Okudah, who you got, Mike Hughes, who you got. There is a lot more uncertainty with those guys. See if you can get the most out of them. I do think that the Buccaneers could potentially be ranked above them, but I just think Terrell is better than anyone the Buccaneers have. I do like Carlton Davis. I do like Jamel Dean. You did lose Sean Murphy-Bunting, who I do think was very underrated. I think there's a lot of uncertainty at that nickel corner spot and not much depth behind some of those guys. So I do think that's interchangeable with the Falcons, but very, very good cornerback division overall. The Buccaneers will start number 1 in the safety room, though. Antoine Winfield is one of the best young safeties in the league. I think Ryan Neal is a really, really good piece. That was a good pickup that they got from Seattle. He played super well in the absence of Jamal Adams last year. For the Saints up next, Tyrann Mathieu, Marcus May, all about health with those guys. When they're both out there, they're both some of the best safeties in the league, but you just got to stay healthy. Matthew's getting a little bit older, so we'll see if they can continue to keep up that high level of play. Very, very good players, though. Next up, the Falcons. The big signing of Jesse Bates certainly helps this group. I thought Richie Grant improved a lot, showed a lot last year, and Bates is one of the best free safeties in the league. He's such a good center fielder. Wasn't amazing at times last year, like he was kind of in the playoffs 2 years ago, but I think overall still a very, very elite safety, and that leaves the Panthers at number 4. Jeremy Chin, could be considered a safety or a corner. I think could go either way. I like the signing of Von Bell. I think he's a good player. Xavier Woods is still there. I like a lot of their pieces. You drafted Bijan Robinson as well. It's just a really, really talented safety division. I like their safety room. I absolutely would say it's not a liability. And overall, really solid group. Let me know what you think about my rankings down below. Let me know what division I should do next. Who should be rated higher? Who should be rated lower? Let me know down below. Would truly love to see what you think. While you're down there, please hit that subscribe button as well. Really pushing to get to 1,000 subscribers by the beginning of the NFL season. Would truly appreciate your support. While you're down there, please hit that like button as well. It means a lot. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.